Ever wonder what goes on in a lab setting or what a scientist has just said because it just flew over your head? Well, you're in the right place. SCoBIRC Cirque, where we will break down scientific topics but also give you a peek into what happens behind these closed doors. As scientists, we're supposed to share our discoveries with the world, not just other people in our scientific community. So grab a seat, put in your headphones, and welcome to SCoBIRC Cirque.
Hi, my name is Dr Gensel. I'm an associate professor in physiology and the director of the Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Research Center here at the University of Kentucky. I'm originally from a small town in Maine, New Vineyard, Maine, about 800 people. And I made my way to the University of Kentucky after going to undergraduate at the University of Pennsylvania. And I started in engineering, actually, and sort of realized that engineering really doesn't have science or math, which were the two things that I really liked in school. And so I switched to essentially what was neuroscience at the time in the College of Arts and Sciences. And in the process, I figured I'd be going to med school. And I did a little bit of research in a research lab to sort of boost my resume for medical school. And during the process, I realized I really liked doing research a lot, and then that changed the course of what I did. I ended up going to graduate school at Ohio State. And I just happened to work in a lab that studied traumatic brain injury when I was an undergrad. And I stayed in the neurotrauma field and studied spinal cord injury as a graduate student. I did some postdoctoral training at Ohio State. I was actually a faculty member there for a short time. And some of the people that I met at the University of Pennsylvania at undergrad were actually at the University of Kentucky as faculty members when I was kind of on the job market, and they encouraged me to apply here. And that's how I arrived down at the University of Kentucky. I've been here since 2012.
So what brought you to science?
I mean, I always liked science. In school, as early as I can remember, I really enjoyed sort of the biological systems and how that worked. I mean, I remember in second grade, we dissected a cow eyeball or something. I just found it fascinating. So I kind of knew I was always going to go in science. And again, I thought medical school was kind of the way it was going to be. But once I understood more about what research entailed, I just found it really motivating. And that's kind of what led me to my career path.
What is your why? Like, what keeps you going? What makes you want to get up and keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so why do I keep doing what I'm doing? Why do I get up every morning, right, and go to my work? I think for me, research is about problem solving. I don't know if I'm necessarily the most creative person in the world, but I really like to find solutions to things. And, when we take complex problems and we can try to break them down and figure out little pieces and see if they work and test that out, whether our little hypotheses work, that really motivates me. I really like the problem solving aspect of things. And I think that goes just beyond research too. I mean, when you think about what it's like to be an academic researcher, one thing we do is conduct research and try to solve problems and those sort of things, but we also mentor students. I have administrative roles now, and all of those are problem solving, right? You have someone come to you, says, hey, this is what I want to do with my career, and you get excited about it. Let's figure it out. Let's see if we can solve this puzzle and move you to the next step. So I think it's really that sort of problem solving idea that motivates me on a day-to-day basis, and I really enjoy what I do. I don't wake up ever and say, man, I wish I was doing a different job. I love my job. We can always take vacations and stuff, but I've never thought, man, I really wish I had taken a different career path.
With mentioning mentorship and you being known for being such a great mentor, how did you get to that point of being being known as such a good mentor?
Mentoring for me, I don't know if it was necessarily intentional. I mean, I think we have a mission as academic researchers. I mean, part of our job is instruction, and mentoring falls within that. I think part it comes from being a parent. I have 3 kids at home. I am kind of in the mode of dad all the time, and I think that translates into work a little bit. where you feel some responsibility for the people in your lab. And I guess for me, when I'm going to look back at my career and ask, in my life, and say, hey, was I successful? Did I do what I wanted to do? For family, I'm going to measure it in part by how my relationships are with my kids. But I think professionally, I'm going to look at, where are the people who I worked with, where did they go after they came in the lab? Did people have better opportunities after they came through the lab than before? And to me, that's a big metric of success. And so I guess that feeds mentoring. I've had a different share of different kind of mentoring styles as a student, as a postdoc. And I guess I also came to recognize that, at least for me and how I function well, it has to do with a certain amount of balance and having things outside of work that motivate me. And so I think it's important to enable people to do that as well. I think a lot of times trainees, people in this field come in and they have this idea that this has to be an all-encompassing thing and that anything outside of work is distraction. And I'm not sure that's the healthiest lifestyle to live. And so I think, part of my goal is also to provide a model for people to say that there can be balance and success, and you can have things that are exciting outside of work. And often, if you give those people that freedom and give the individuals the model that you can do both, then you end up being more productive in all facets of life.
Something from your past mentors that you carry on into your mentorship now?
So what do I carry from my previous mentors that I try to do now as a mentor, I guess, is just provide feedback and positive feedback and belief. I think I struggled at times as a student when I wasn't sure if the path I was on was sort of the right one, meaning whether I was actually good at what I was doing, whether I kind of had what it takes. And I had a mentor along the way who absolutely believed in me. He challenged me. He definitely, he didn't give it out for free, but he, made it clear that if I put my work in, he let me know that I could achieve the goals that I had in front of me. And so I think that's important, is just to, kind of create the path, give people the resource they need to succeed, and then let their own motivations take them, and instead remove those barriers that are often artificial, that may not be there for people to succeed.
From your earlier points in your career of being a mentor, what were some of the things that you had to learn? Like, what were some of the downs from mentoring that you had in the beginning with some of your earlier students?
Yeah, for me in mentoring, there's been some ups and downs. I think the challenge I have is my mentoring style is kind of a little hands-off, meaning that I really want people to sort of work within their comfort zone and sort of provide the resource they need to succeed, but that success is going to be driven in large part by their own motivation. And there are times where, I've had trainees who seem less motivated, and that's a challenge on how hard do you push. And ultimately, I've realized, I think that, I'm not necessarily going to push that hard. I'm going to really try to instill upon people the value of where they can go if they want to work hard. But ultimately, I think it's really up to them to work. I think the times where I've struggled is where I'm trying to maybe push someone in a direction they don't want to go, or where my own sake of timelines or energy or pressure leaks over into mentorship. I mean, again, it's like parents, right? Like, for the most part, kids, trainees, they're pretty consistent most of the time. And if I'm getting frustrated, it probably has much more to do with me than it has to do with their effort. And I think maintaining that balance and understanding, where frustrations or pressure may come from can help guide people in the right direction and provide some consistency as well.
We're going to go back into research a little bit.
Sure.
So with the research that's being done within the Gensel lab, how do you see it fitting into the future story of research overall?
Yeah, so, thinking about the big picture of the research that's being conducted in the lab, not necessarily from, the specific goals we have of trying to improve outcomes for spinal cord injury, but maybe a bigger portion of what the role that this research may have on a bigger impact. I mean, one thing that I've been very influenced by is just these concepts of reproducibility, rigor, transparency, data sharing. These are things that I've just kind of taken some value in and stock in, and it's something that I think we continue to work for, and hopefully we'll have a model for that from the research that's coming out of the lab. So, there's a number of things that have changed in the field and in research in general. The inclusions of both sexes, males and females, in the work that you do. The concepts of thinking about the application of what your research is actually trying to achieve, right? So, Andrew Stewart, who was a postdoc in my lab and is an assistant professor here now at the University of Kentucky, said at one time that for people who suffer from neurological disorders or spinal cord injury, researchers are the superheroes for them. They're the people who are going to make their lives better, right? And I think while we certainly don't feel like a superhero, and the time that we move is awfully slow, it takes a long time for research to actually have impact. Having that idea of the fact that you would like to have impact in mind and think about the people who are going to benefit from the research, I think drives my research, and hopefully that's some of the things that we'll see with the work that comes out of the Gensel lab, is that we're actually trying to push that field, sort of set standards, or at least hold ourselves to the highest standards of research, and then ultimately do it for the sake of individuals who otherwise don't have the resources to be conducting this research, right? And try to help them out.
We're going to move into outside of the lab. Who is
Sure.
Dr. Gensel? So outside of the lab, who are you? What do you do to de-stress? What makes you unique?
Yeah, so what am I outside the lab, right? It's kind of funny. We were at a conference this past week, and I was sort of with another professor there from the University of Kentucky, and he sort of looked at me and said, John, no one's going to notice whether we're, whether we've had a few drinks at this, this conference event or not, because, we're pretty much the same person inside the lab or inside the university as we are at home, which I think is pretty true for me. I think I'm pretty, I don't hold a lot back. I think I'm pretty transparent, and I think that's true at home, whether I'm at, or not. Outside of work, I have 3 kids. That's pretty much takes most of my time. And, I took this job in part too because I never had to punch a clock, and that's really important for me. I want to be able to, make sure I'm putting my kids to bed at night. I'm picking them up from school if I need to, those sort of things. And I've been able to find that balance. There's some early mornings in there where I might have to squeeze some work in. But, I made a decision to myself many years ago when I said about when I was looking at what I wanted the next 20 years to look like in terms of work and life and stuff. And I said, the metric for success for me is going to be whether my kids talk to me or not in 20 years. And, if that means that I'm not the most established researcher in the world, so be it. And I think that grounded me pretty well. And definitely that sort of that family balance at home makes me happy. Outside of that too, I'm an ultra runner. I put in ultra marathons when I can. I train a lot. I think that definitely helps me de-stress. But I've always had pretty bold athletic goals throughout my life. Whether it's playing ultimate frisbee at one point for probably 20 years or so is pretty much the highest level I could. And now I've come to transition to running with that. But I've got my de-stress things. I think I've also done a good job of really sort of compartmentalizing, I guess. I think that has a negative connotation. I guess my goal is to try to be present in whatever I do. So, if I'm at work, then I want to be 100% here at work. If I'm at home, I want to be 100% at home. And I'm pretty good at being able to do that. I can walk away from the office because I have to leave at a set time to pick up a kid, and I can be mid-sentence in something I'm writing, and I can just leave it. And it doesn't really trickle into my brain until I'm back into that space that I need to work on it again. It's taken time to hone that for sure, but being present definitely makes life more fulfilling, I think.
Outside of science, what is something that you would like to explore? Like it can be a new hobby or anything like
Outside of science, what would I like to explore? I think I'm probably kind of doing what I'm doing. I don't know if I allow myself to think, to dream too much about things that I can't actually do with the time that I have. One thing I think about is when I slow down in research and get, towards that phase where I'm probably retiring, I'll cook a lot more. I mean, not that I'm going to become a chef or anything, but, spend a little bit more time on that front. I think I'm trying to do what I can, and I really don't have too many things I feel like I'm missing out on. And again, I sort of scale my expectations to the time I have.
So, how did you achieve this work-life balance?
It's funny talking about work-life balance. I remember hearing someone say it's really simple, and I think it is. Do you define work or life by the balance? And what I mean is, does your day end because you have life to live, or does your day end because you got your work done? And if your day ends because you have life to live and you have kids, in my case, I need to pick up, or it's, a certain time, it's time to leave, then you've achieved work-life balance, where you're defining the scope and time that you're spending at work by the life that you want to live. And so it's just kind of the end of the day, when do you leave? Do you leave when, that paragraph is written, that paper is read, or do you leave because it's time to go live life? And so I guess understanding that life drives that has enabled me to have work-life balance. I mean, I think also for success, there's a few times, you may have deadlines, you may have certain things where you have to kind of prioritize that work and get it done. If you manage your time well, the times that you have to do that can be fairly limited, and otherwise you can have pretty good balance.
This week on SCoBIRC Cirque, we have very special guests that will come and bring their insight onto what research has to offer for the world. Don't miss out. SCoBIRC Cirque premiering this July.